Hi, my name is Jane and I am a student at University of Washington in Tacoma. I am studying urban design and minoring in sustainable urban development. I am 4 weeks into my classes, and during the pandemic, of course, it's going to be through Zoom, which is actually more convenient because you don't have to drive and find parking. But anyways, the content that has been dropped in class so far is very relevant to what is happening in the world right now. And so I'm creating this channel to help me learn better, but also to put out the information that is relevant to what is happening in the world right now regarding sustainable city development as well, meaning part of sustainable urban development is going to tackle climate justice and going to tackle racism, mainly because part of sustainability is there's the ecology aspect, which covers the climate justice aspect. There is the equality aspect, which covers racism and talks about eradicating poor areas, and also the economics, of course, which is what runs the city as well. So those three pillars are the key component on creating a more sustainable future. And also I learned that there are liberal activists out there that is proactively trying to block the sustainable movement because they feel that it will take away from national sovereignty and take away freedom from the people. But of course, I don't agree with that. I believe everyone should move full force forward on the sustainability movement and try to get each city to adopt sustainable practices. For instance, the city of Tacoma right now, for 5 years now, have created departments and have started to staff over 20 people on equity and inclusion. So they focus on activities that will support creating a more equality within the city. There are commissions with that deals with immigration, human rights, and disability within the city. So hopefully they're able to impact small businesses and corporations as well to adopt equitable policies on hiring practices within the city. I don't know about other cities, but I know City of Tacoma is on board right now. And especially after the pandemic with the huge outbursts of racism, they are incorporating new initiatives in the programs that they create for the city to tackle that. They have education on anti-racism. And so one of the key components of sustainability is studying the history of city development, what worked and what hasn't. One thing I learned in class is that, during the development of New York, they actually initially created real estate that offered unlivable conditions. So right off the bat, these buildings were condensed without windows, without lights. There are no garden space, and people are just crammed into these buildings and living in it in such a slum condition, to the point where a journalist had to start taking pictures, and he published a book exposing the living conditions of that side of the city, and that forced government officials to take action, and eventually they destroyed those buildings and created created more sustainable living conditions for people. Of course, you know, those people weren't, I don't think those people were displaced during the eradication of poor areas, but in order for the city of New York to function sustainably, they addressed that issue. And I think moving forward, part of sustainability is to bring in more resources to poor areas, provide more parks, and be able to provide upward mobility to residents as well. In the case of redlining back in the 1930s, banks were labeling, you know, areas of the poor to be high risk area, which created this cycle of people investing, developers investing in areas that were more wealthier, which is labeled as green and blue space. And so the poorer became poorer and the wealthier became wealthier. And this cycle is a disaster for just having a sustainable city to live in. And even the banks were denying Black people loans in areas, in wealthier areas, because they were being redlined. And now the impact, if we study, you know, those areas now, those conditions are still really bad, and no one is, you know, people living in that area doesn't have enough resources to get themselves out of the situation. And so I hope in the future part of sustainability is to eradicate poor areas by pouring in more resources so that the poor areas can be livable, and people's mental health will actually improve, and hopefully be able to motivate themselves to engage in upward mobility as well. And there is going to be a lot of issues when it comes to equality. There's a huge mental health crisis that's happening in the world, but I think we are going to be able to tackle each and every issue as they come up. But if we don't tackle how to design a more sustainable ecosystem in cities, we are basically going to pour in resources to symptoms and not the root cause, which is definitely not sustainable at all in the future anyways. So hopefully I will be able to keep you on board on my educational journey on how to build a more sustainable city.